just with a principle. And I think that this is really important for when you are starting to get into this. I knew someone was talking about this when I started. And it's the man in black principle. Now, we joke about it from time to time, but whenever you're cosplaying, you're at a convention, you're doing these things, you obviously dressed up to get a little notice, whether it's while you're buying things or you're going with the group. And so it's really important that you look at your cosplay. I think I love that so much. It's important to think about how you are perceived to other people. So let me give you an example. Just picture in your mind, if you would, someone in a black pair of pants with a black suit top with a white undershirt. What could they be from? Is that a man in black? Is that some sort of agent? Could it be Agent 47? It's hard to really know specifically. And that's why you, of course, have props to distinguish yourself or some other creative factor. So when you think about some men in black, just think, is it identifiable? Is it specific? And is it even possible to some regards? So that can also be helped with asking yourself the question, why do you cosplay? Do you want to go with a certain group of people? Do you want to just dress up as something other than just a shorts and a t-shirt? Or are you really trying to go for some sort of mastery when it comes to your prop making, like something like Kay would do? And so that's always a fantastic question to ask yourself. And just to give an example, like the reason I started cosplaying, it was 2019, and it was the worst hair doctor I've ever made. No questions about it. It was absolutely terrible. It was all off the shades, and my belt was riding all the way up. Now, I was like 17 at the time, but these things happen. And the reason I kept doing it was because I found people who recognized hair doctor, or people who just yelled medic from across the convention, and you know what, that was conducive to me. I'd link up with them, say, how are you doing, my friend? I'd say something stupid, and then we'd walk around for the rest of the day. That's even how we met up. That's the reason I cosplay. But some people look at it in different ways. Some people look at it trying to maximize accuracy or just doing something that's comedic. And I salute all of those things. But that's something that you want to... Oh, you look fantastic, by the way. That's good work. Those are things you want to think about when you are starting to put together your cosplay or you're trying to make some adjustments. So now that we've talked a little philosophically, I'm going to get specifically into the things that I have done. I'm going to use my big boy voice and I'm going to stand up. Everyone can hear me?
Yep. Yes.
So we're going to ignore that because he has seen a lot of things. But my pride and joy, of course, is my Medi-Gun, which is, besides getting stuck on carts, which it loves doing, it is certainly a little bit heavier than the average prop, but I was willing to sacrifice that because I really wanted to get the proportions correct and something that people would notice. Because it's one type of thing just to be walking around in a trench coat with a pair of glasses and a pigeon, as some people call it, but it's something entirely different if they look over and they see this thing. Because a lot of people understand or have at least seen the Medi-Gun before, and when paired with both sides, it becomes really obvious who you are at that point. So for cardboard, I've had this prop since 2019, and every year I've added something a little different. So base is just PVC. This is removable just for convenience sake. It also serves as a storage tool, which I can take stuff in here. It's quite useful for that. And every year I've added something a little different. So I started about 2 years ago, I added this cardboard base function. And this kind of gets into the part about cardboard and why I highly recommend it. So the pros of cardboard. First of all, it's cheap. You go to Walmart, you can get a large cardboard box. I just moved out, I would know. It's like $2.50. It's super cheap, and especially if you're experimenting or you're not very well versed with how to cosplay things, you're going to need that little bit of wiggle room. You don't want to spend $50 on EVA foam just to realize that, oh, well, spray paint just kind of melts at times and stuff like that. I had a mannequin head once, and I tried spray painting the head black in it. It looked like the burn victim from Half-Life. It was terrifying.
I'll say that if you're talking about styrofoam, EVA foam actually can be okay. The problem with EVA foam is that it's flexible and aerosol paints will crack.
Yeah.
So
those things do love to crack. So I've also combined that with duct tape, which not only helps provide a solid base for paint, just as anything starts to flake off, but of course, when you combine duct tape with cardboard, it's very flexible, very durable, and it's quite resistant. There's a lot of things you can do to this. It really won't have much of a problem with it. So there's another part to this as well. So you have duct tape and cardboard, which put together is very lightweight, very resistant, but I would not recommend it being for anything that requires tension. So I mentioned tension because right now I'm wearing two belts. One of these is very tight and holds my Medipack to my bag for when I walk around, and the other one is cosmetic. It looks the way that it's supposed to. It's a game. That's very important because 2019 had doctor did notice a difference, so he walked in with a very elastic belt and went straight up to my chest, and I looked very special, I tell you. So that's certainly something I have to think about as well. And now we come to the glue gun segment as well, because while cardboard and duct tape are certainly very useful, glue is certainly a little different, especially with the glue gun. Now everyone loves to use a glue gun for a quick fix and things like that, but it's really important that you get it right, because it's not so much about going around, it's about making the most surface contact and then holding it for a certain amount of time, as you're supposed to, because if you don't, it falls back off. But it's not very resistant to tapping, to hits. These things fall off all the time. In fact, that's what's happened with my poor boxer. He's seen so much. My poor friend here. This part has been glued several times, and if I were more studious, I would, of course, remove the glue before it and then attach more. But certainly with this sort of thing, it's quite good, but that's because no one's hitting it. Like if I give it a good slap, I know it pop right off. That's just the nature of glue guns. So with all that being said, it's of course important when you're using duct tape and cardboard with these sorts of things, you can always prototype a whole bunch because it's very expendable, and the duct tape and stuff makes it quite durable. But watch what duct tape you try and use. I would highly recommend there's a Gorilla Tape going out there, because of course we have to tier these things. There's duct tape, there's Gorilla Tape, there's T-Rex tape. I've never used it, but for whatever reason, it's gotta have a catchy name. And so the Gorilla Tape is really quite effective as well, because this is what I've used mostly for the outside, because it keeps it all together quite well, especially for the external pieces. And now that's to say, the great thing about cardboard is if you make something and you realize, wait, I don't know if it needs to be that big, or I don't know if I need to have a little nubbing here at the end, you can just remove it. You just cut it straight off and then put a piece of tape around it, and it covers up when you cut off. That's the great thing about cardboard, is you can be very flexible with it. So let's see. I talked about the load bearing system. The other great thing about duct tape is, of course, if you happen to break something while you're at a con, which is a complete nightmare. Everyone hates when your stuff breaks at cons. Me specifically, I spent half the night sewing this patch back on. But for other things, you need specialized tools, this, that, and the other. But I left the duct tape at home. That's okay. I was wondering why it felt so light. But the great thing about duct tape, of course, is that if you have a problem with this, something falls up, you can just use more duct tape. There's no philosophy here. You can just keep adding more. As long as you add smooth, consistent pieces, there's really nothing to worry about, because duct tape loves to stick to duct tape, to cardboard, to basically anything you put on it. I mean, I've known some people who would make mannequins just by putting on pieces of clothes and then duct taping themselves and then cutting it off and then making their own mannequin. It's a great thing about cardboard, is that it really sticks to everything. Especially when you're going to a con, you're putting a lot of mileage on your clothes, your boots, your body. These things are going to break. So expecting them to just be hunky-dory is sometimes unrealistic, unless you're wearing something very light and dainty and there's not a lot involved with it. But I'm going to start ending my segment now, and I'm just going to follow it up with 3 more parts that you can ask yourself when you get to these things. Because as you can tell, there's a certain aspect that I've added to my head doctor as well, which is, of course, the accent. So, I didn't mean to scare you, I'm sorry. So that's one of those things that you really want to think about. I knew a good friend of mine cosplayed Elle for 1 year as a character from Death Note, and so she handed out candy the entire time. Of course, she got plenty of pictures, had a great time because everyone wanted to see the Elle. Sure, they were handing out Twix bars, but it's something that differentiates yourself from other people. And of course, when you are getting through something, I tell you, if you haven't cosplayed before, it's the first year, it's going to be a nightmare. There's going to be something you haven't quite figured out, or something you didn't know would be a problem until you step into the convention floor. And that's why, thank God, there's so many cosplay medics running around to help out with those things. But certainly be prepared for almost anything. Like if you have anything sewing-wise, I see a couple of people from time to time hanging up against a wall, re-sewing something on this stuff. Always keep, a threaded needle with you. Don't be like me and forget your duct tape. Keep these things with you so that in the worst case scenario, whatever happens, you can at least somewhat recover from that. And now, of course, for being your first year, it's not going to be perfect. And there's a level of which you need to be okay with it not being perfect. You have to come to terms with that. For example, this is the first year I'm working on this coat, and as you can tell, there's a reason I'm talking about duct tape and not seam work. That's because I'm a history major by trade. I know nothing about the thread and needle, and I've never had more anger problems than with my sewing machine. I tell you, I don't know what that thing has wrong with it, but it's been taking it out on me. And so, but I've accepted that. It was the night before con. I said, you know what? The patches are on, the button's on the other side. I'm okay with that. Now, does that mean I'm going to stop? Of course not. I'm going to spend the rest of the summer resewing this damn thing and probably getting a better template. But there's a level to which you have to accept that things aren't going to be perfect, but you also have to recognize, I mean, you're at a convention. People aren't looking at you and saying, oh, you know, I really don't think that red side is supposed to be there chronologically and lore speaking. It's supposed to be on the left. No one's going to be like that. If they are, you smile.
Really? Because on the Reach Marines, it's on this side.
So unless you run into that person, then you smile and you wave. They call you a Ghostbuster. You say, of course I'm a Ghostbuster. You walk away. That's what you do. And of course, there'll be people who come over and take pictures with you and say, that's fantastic. That's all a part of it as well. So you really have to come to terms. It's going to be perfect every time. Yes?
Can I also say that perfection is the enemy?
Yes, it is.
Good enough is sometimes good enough, because when you try to reach perfect, you end up messing up the entire thing. Because you can't just like take out the seam and redo it, take out the seam and redo it, you know?
You can only do it so many times.
I know, you can only do it so many times.
I have sewn this backwards many times. It's fairly annoying.
Right, yeah.
So I think that's probably a good note to end on. Of course, if we have more questions at the end, or you want to talk about something cardboard based, I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards. But now I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Gordon here, who is very good with this 3D printing I keep hearing about, and it's a good crowbar too.
I'll give you a closer look later. However, I think I am going to be passing it off to our lovely Kanev here, as that was the original order. We're not seeing it.
Why aren't you sitting 1, 2, 3?
I know, but I feel like EVA foam works is a good in-between 3D printing and cardboard. Anyway.
Okay.
Thank you. So here's my guide to EVA foam, beginner's guide. So what is EVA foam? Essentially, EVA foam is a type of what we would call like thermoplastic. EVA foam stands for ethylene vinyl acetate, and it's a fun blend of plastic and rubber, which is what gives it its flexibility and bending quality. And you may have seen these growing up in classrooms or at gyms, and these are like your most basic ever EVA foam mats. I brought one here because I have an emergency one in my Airbnb.
Be prepared.
But these are really, really accessible. You can buy them at your local hardware store. I believe we got these at Harbor Freight. So I feel like EVA foam has a really interesting spectrum of being fairly easy to get into and to start out in, but there's so many levels of mastery and detail work that you can do over time. And again, more about what it is. It's flexible, it's lightweight, and it's shapeable by heat, which you might have guessed from the fact that it is a thermoplastic. But all of these factors make it a great choice for cosplay. But there's a lot of steps that take something from this and turn it into these amazing brilliant creations. I brought a relatively simple prop with me. I think I might pull a doc and just talk as well. but I brought like one of my most simple props with me, but I love it. It's the conscientious objector. And this is literally, you can more clearly see how it goes from basic piece of foam into this. But using various tools, I'm going to get to here in a second, you can make it look like something different and special. So some of the questions I want to cover is how much does it cost to use EVA foam as a material? What does the process of using EVA foam look like? And when should I use EVA foam? And ultimately that's to answer, is EVA foam the right choice for my project? So I would describe the process as having about like 5 segments to it, right? So getting the foam itself, taking that out, and planning your cosplay. Then you have cutting and shaping the foam. You have gluing the foam, then sealing/painting, and then attaching it to various other parts of cosplay. Because typically EVA foam might take the form of armor or props, but it's not exclusively EVA foam. There's other components that are happening in there. So first I want to talk a bit more about the foam itself. Again, these tile mats, they typically come in 2 foot by 2 foot pieces. They're a 1/2 inch thick, and while they are a great and accessible starting point, you will notice that on one side, there is this absolutely awful, rough texture to it that can make it difficult for certain projects. But if you're careful about keeping it to the side, keeping this on the outside, you can still make good finishes and have a good time. However, there's also the world of online foam sales, and there are plenty of places to buy them. This is a screenshot from, I believe it's cosplayshop.be, and you get more variety. So this is what's known as like a low density foam. So it's a lot more bendy, a lot more floppy. It doesn't sand or cut quite as well, and it'll dull blades pretty fast. But online you can buy anywhere from low density to high density to ultra high density, fancy. And basically what density means is like how compact the cells are. And I would say that the higher density it is, the more it almost cuts and sands like wood. It's still obviously not going to be as sturdy or structurally sound as wood, but it's a lot easier to work with. And people who are doing more elaborate builds, like I have a feeling you probably use high density.
I did. Actually, I used some Harbor Freight floor mats for my shins, which, you know, if you're doing shins, I would recommend high density because they get beaten up a lot.
Yes, that's the...
Get up so people can see you.
We have an amazing example of EVA foam armor right here, so we're using our resources. But yeah, shout out Spoon. But yeah, so the other thing you have to think about with EVA foam beyond density is thicknesses. Typically, when you're buying online, a lot of the time it'll come in millimeter rather than inches, which can be confusing to the American brain. But there are plenty of converters online to figure it out. This thickness is about 20 millimeters, so you can kind of work backwards from there to try to figure out how much is what. So for example, like 10 millimeter is closer to quarter of an inch. But yeah, I think typically for armor builds, you'll run about 8 millimeters to 10 millimeters is what I see the most. Because you get a good balance of being able to mold and shape it, but then also a level of durability. And you'll also find really, really thin pieces, such as 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, but these are great for details, for more ornate work, for like overlaying on top and cutting out shapes and for those details. And then, so these are some popular foam brands that are available online: Cosplay Shop.be, Cosplay Pros, The Foamery, SKS, and What the Foam. But there's lots of places online you can buy it. I also want to talk about some other like non-sheet varieties of foam. So there are half dowels, full dowels, and these things called bevels. The bevels are the like weird triangles. These you can make at home, but a lot of times on armor pieces with like more medieval or like fantasy type elements, you'll see these like metal bevels on the armor, and it can be really nice to just buy them and be able to glue them straight on rather than cutting them yourself. And then finally, the other like foam material that I want to say that I love is foam clay. It's basically magic, but when you're gluing together foam, you'll often have these little gaps, and filling that in with foam clay can be a great option. Foam clay sticks directly to EVA foam. You use water to manipulate it and to stick it together, and it is a great tool to have in your arsenal. So yeah, and then I want to talk a little bit about planning with EVA foam, because I think that there's a bit of like a mental curve of starting to figure out, how do you think in these weird shapes? How do you think in layers? So like, how do you turn this flat piece of material into a shape? And I this is like totally just my way of phrasing it, but I think there's two different kinds of like EVA foam construction. You have layering, and then you have like forming. So layering is where you take layers of EVA foam and you stack them on top of each other, and then you take away certain aspects or cutouts to create your final shape. And this tends to be more common for guns or spears, flat, linear sorts of things. And then the other option is forming, where you're making more three-dimensional shapes. You're curving the foam into, you know, your basic cylinder, but then more complex by finding templates or creating your own templates. So yeah, and then over time, you get a lot more used to thinking about foam in this way. And then I want to talk about some resources that can be used for planning these sorts of things. So Blender and Peppercura tend to be my two favorites. Blender is a free 3D program. I'm popping this mic. And you can import a lot of different 3D models. Personally, we do TF2 a lot, and so if you're working with any Valve game, it's very easy to pull models straight from the game and pull them into Blender to look at them and to export them. But there's tons of fan-made models online for different sorts of things, or ones you can purchase. So I think it's great to look around, see what you can import into Blender, really get close to those details, take a lot of really great reference photos, and use that. And then Peppercura, so it's originally made in Japan, and it was originally made for paper crafting. If you've seen like paper crafting before, you take different planes and you fold them up and you glue them together to make objects, right? But what you can do is you can import 3D models from, say, Blender or other sources, and it'll unfold the model for you. The screenshot here on the slide is of Pepakura, so you can take this complex thing like a helmet and it'll help you by unfolding the objects into flat planes. And that's what I have here. This is part of a prop I'm working on, but you can print out and test how it'll be three-dimensionally, and then take it back apart to make your templates to go on your EVA foam. So yeah, so that's a little about planning with EVA foam. And then I wanted to go back and kind of just do an overview. So the thing about EVA foam is I think that you can get EVA foam relatively cheaply, but you also have to think about what I would call your toolkit cost. There's so many other things that come with EVA foam. So just kind of going through the slide, for example, for cutting and shaping, I would say there's like 3 main things that you want to have. You want to have some kind of knife. X-Acto knives are really great, so are utility blades. And then along with that, ideally a whetstone, because EVA foam dulls blades so quickly. So you don't want to be constantly buying new blades. So I recommend getting a whetstone, which basically is you can sharpen a blade on it. And you'll want to be doing that pretty constantly because you can start to very quickly feel the difference between a fresh blade cutting or a not fresh blade. Like it turns jagged and real sad really fast. And the more time you save cutting cleanly, the less time will be spent sanding going, why is this so rough? But yeah, and then the second item of, I guess, like the trifecta would be a heat gun. Since EVA foam is a thermoplastic and it's shapeable by heat, you want a heat gun to be able to direct it at your foam, and it'll make it more pliable. You'll be able to bend it into shape, and if you hold it in shape, generally speaking, it'll hold that general shape once it has cooled back down. Some people say you can use a hair dryer. I don't think it works very well. You'll probably just be disappointed and sad. So I really recommend picking up a heat gun. They're usually around on the cheaper end, $20, which isn't nothing, but it's not terrible, and I think it's worth the investment if you want to get into EVA foam. And then finally, my favorite, I brought one because again I brought it to my Airbnb, is the Dremel tool. I love her. She's basically like sandpaper on a really fast rotating thing. And EVA foam is very sandable, and especially by a Dremel tool. So like for example, on my sign, all these little like cuts you see, some of them are done with a knife, but the more like layered areas that are dips and edges and things like that were done with the Dremel tool, and it's really good for getting in detail work or for adjusting seams. If you try to put seams together and they don't line up, you can smooth that out with the Dremel tool. So it's really powerful and it's really great. Dremel tools typically run around $60, so I would say that's probably the priciest of the like getting into it. And really, it's not like absolutely necessary, although I highly recommend it. So yeah. And then next, we're going to talk about gluing. Oh.
If you're using a Dremel on EVA foam, please wear a respirator or a mask.
Don't worry, we're going to have a PPE.
Okay.
It's coming
Okay.
very soon. For gluing, my favorite is barge cement. Typically, I try to get the toluene free because it will kill you less. Which is again, we'll talk about this more in the PPE interlude. I'll mention it now, but a lot of these materials are very toxic. Not good to breathe in. Not good to get in your eyes. Please don't go blind, and please don't damage your lungs. But this is contact cement. It works a little differently than normal glue. I think the number one thing to remember is that more glue does not equal more secure. Unlike hot glue, where you want more surface area and more things, contact cement doesn't play that way. She does not like that. If you use too much and you try to stick two pieces together, they're just going to kind of glue you back apart, and it's not a fun time.
Is that because the glue sticks to the glue? Is that why? Or?
Yeah, the glue sticks to the glue and it also fuses with the foam. So typically when you're using the glue, I'm going to give a brief overview, but what you're going to do is you'll have your two pieces. You're going to apply, hi, I'm talking again. So if you had your two pieces of foam, you're going to apply your glue. You could use a brush. My personal favorite is to get these like little condiment bottles and put the glue in that because you have a lot more control.
Yes.
It's so nice.
And you don't have the open can.
Yes,
right?
It's less fumes, and any chance you can do to get less glue fumes, it's not a good high, guys. It's not a good high. And so you'll take your thing and you'll squirt along the side. And what I typically do is I'll have little chunks of like random scraps of EVA foam. And what I like to do is take it and spread a really even coat of the glue on the foam. So that way you're not having like little like thicker areas, and it really helps it. I recommend gloves. It gets messy. But yeah, so you'll do that on both sides. And then what you'll want to do is you actually want to wait until it almost feels dry. It could feel like the slightest bit tacky, but this is not like a wet glue. So you want it to feel almost dry before you eventually stick them together. And again, there are much more full tutorials on gluing that I highly recommend you watch. This is just to give you a general idea and to mention some pitfalls that happen with gluing. And once they come together, they pretty much are not going to come apart again. Sometimes if you're on like long edges, you can get enough leverage to pull it apart, but generally speaking, the foam will rip before the glue rips. So yeah. Next up, I want to talk. I've been told I'm not allowed now. Anyway.
No.
So,
Oh, there's a question.
it's the first time for everything.
What's up?
No, I wanted to add something. If you're gluing two pieces together, make sure that's like the first thing you do instead of trying to glue two finished painted pieces together, because it'll just rip off the layer of paint and finish.
You want to glue your material together,
Yeah.
not your paint together.
Exactly. So you follow these steps. The glue comes before the sealing and the painting, or you will be very sad. Very, very sad. Yeah, thank you. So I guess it addresses to sealing and painting. Something that's really common with EVA foam is this concept of heat sealing. So typically what you do before you start well, you can do it before or after you glue. I see some people say, always do it before you glue. Some people are like, no, glue first. But basically you take your heat gun and you run it over the EVA foam, because the way it works is that EVA foam has like pores in it, right? It has a bunch of like structures, and going over it with heat helps close these, and it makes it less absorbent, which is good because if you're trying to paint an absorbent surface, the paint just kind of soaks in and soaks in and soaks in. You're like, what if we just added our 8th layer? Then surely it'll work. It doesn't go well. But so yeah, so heat sealing is a really great thing. And then you'll also want to use a primer. And this isn't going to be like your traditional primer that you can buy from the spray paint aisle. You're going to want to use, typically the two major ones are Plastidip and Flexibond. Plastidip typically comes in like an air spray can, although there is a dippable form. And then Flexibond will be be able to brush it on, because people can't do aerosol. Hi.
There's also a newer kind of material called leak seal.
Okay.
I use that for my marine, and it's sandable too. And instead of leak seal, you just want to do one big layer, let it dry, and then you can sand it down. I have an old friend. Are we allowed to shout YouTube?
Yeah, go ahead.
It goes Random Ranger. He's a red Spartan, and he has a really good in-depth video on leak seal. I like it because it seems to be more durable than Plastidip,
Nice.
but it's a little more expensive. So.
Yeah. That is always the case, isn't it? More durability is more expensive. And then, so what's different about these kinds of primers is that they're designed to be flexible. Because EVA foam is squishy, is flexible, which is great for shaping it, less great for painting. And this sort of primer basically helps make sure that when you put the paint on, it's not going to flake and break when that bending does occur. So it protects it from that. So yeah, and then you can, after you Plastidip or Flexibond or say one more time, leak seal it, then you can go in with almost any paint. Obviously the most like high-end best would be in theory flexible acrylic that's designed to bend. But in my experience, depending on what you're painting, if it's not totally like completely flexing, you can use more standard acrylics. Airbrushing is also always a really, really good option, but airbrushes tend to run upwards of $60, $80, so it's not always great for a starting position, and you can go in with the more classic either spray paint or brushes. Yeah. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit, actually before we get to attaching, I'm going to have our PPE interlude, which is personal protective equipment. And I'm going to talk.
Never heard of it.
And I want to talk both about what you put on you as well as thinking about the environment around you, right? I would say your two main things that you want to have are a respirator and then some kind of eyewear protection, ideally one that seals around the edges. Respirator, we love her. Please don't just wear a face mask. It's not doing that much for you. It's not really doing anything for you. So try to get a high enough filter rating. I also don't remember the exact filter rating. I recommend looking up the exact one. But yeah, always wear a respirator when sanding or when using the glue.
Okay, what was that type that I had when I was helping you with this? Because
Did
I
you have
left
the
cardboard
pink one?
that
I think I gave you.
Did you? I remember there was a smaller one with the filter in the middle. Do you remember? Because no, yes, it was that one. It was that one. Because when you are doing this and you are sanding, it's going to get everywhere. I came down to Florida to help Kay out with one of the pops, And I make it quick, I promise. And I was sanding all night long, and I come back in the morning, and my car is red. It's supposed to be painted blue, but it got everywhere. Every month when I detail my car, I still find red pieces of the foam.
Got auto balance.
So yeah, I got auto balance, but take care of your environment.
Hold on, I forgot what I was gonna say. Hold on. Well ventilated area. Even with the respirator.
Yes. So well ventilated area. If you can, I recommend outside but with a shop vac, because obviously you want to balance protecting yourself and the people in your household and the environment, because you don't want to be out here like totally polluting everything.
I also wanted to say, if you're doing it outside, try not to do it on the ground because that's where the gas pools. Like try to do it on a table or something.
Yes, an elevated surface is always good.
When
Sorry.
using spray on things, be careful not to wait till the wind stops too, so it doesn't blow away
Yeah.
to either your house or just the environment.
Yes, always be aware of the wind. I definitely haven't tried to spray paint something and then looked up and saw that my house had a little silver spray paint on it. That's never happened to me. So you should be careful that it doesn't happen to you.
You recommend these to your dogs?
But yeah, so I recommend goggles and a respirator, and that is pretty much when working with any kind of sanding with EVA foam, as well as with using the glue. I said earlier, there's this thing called toluene in it, and that's considered like the most brain damaging chemical that's in this. Although there's also other bad things. So don't damage your brain or your eyes or your lungs or your anything. Work with equipment, ideally outside or in a really well ventilated area. I also recommend if you have some kind of shop vac. Shop vacs, basically, if you don't know, are like little box vacuums that have a long tube. And what I usually do for my setup is I have a table and I duct tape the tube onto my workspace, and I have my little thing and I'm dremeling and it's kind of sucking it in throughout. So that way you don't have as much buildup happening. But again, you will get covered in the foam if you sand it. It will be on your arms, it will be everywhere. Don't wear clothes that you like to do this. I think that's pretty much true for any cosplay project. But yeah, so keep yourself safe. Foam responsibly.
Take it from me, I poisoned myself not 2 weeks ago trying to make this guy here pee-pee. Is very, very important.
And then finally, I want to talk just a little bit about attaching. So again, generally speaking, EVA foam isn't always like your final moment. Like for my sign, I have it attached to this really large pole. I love PVC pipe. It helps keep that like lightweightness that you're trying to go for with EVA foam, whether it's putting it inside of your prop, outside of your prop, attaching it. Magnets are also always a great option for attaching things. Because EVA foam is so light, it tends to take to magnets really well because it won't weigh down too much and fall off. If you're gonna have a lot of movement though, you have to be careful. And the other thing is like straps and buckles. Straps and buckles are an interesting thing, and it's like, how do you attach them to EVA foam? With nylon straps, hot glue actually works surprisingly well. Typically, contact cement you're not going to want to use to attach other things. It's just for the EVA foam to EVA foam part. You'll want to use maybe E6000 or hot glue for things like magnets, things like straps. Depending on how heavy duty you want to be, you can also sew into EVA foam, but that's a little more complicated, and there's certain like patterns you want to use when trying to stitch that, so you don't just have it rip your foam. But yeah, I think that's pretty much most of my overview of EVA foam. I also wanted to include some.
You can also use grommets to attach.
Yes, grommets are also great. There's so many different ways to attach and so many unique things that like I've seen people do EVA foam. I think it's great. It's like just you give me out of the box and like how can I use this in the best way to aid me. And then I just wanted to include some YouTube channels that I think are really great. My favorite of all time is probably Community Cosplay. She does absolutely amazing work. And I think if you want to get into EVA foam, you should watch people who are doing it. I think it is really inspiring, and it makes you, again, start to get into this mindset. So I feel like cosplay and different like mediums are a mindset. You have to get used to it. How do you think this medium? How do you make these things? And so yeah, so I think these are all great creators to follow and learn more from. And yeah, overall I'd say EVA foam, again, middle of the road price-wise. It can be as expensive or as cheap as you kind of want it to be if you want to DIY it, whether it's floor tiles or huge rolls of EVA foam, high density, low density. I would just say get out there and start creating. I would say if you're new, just pick up a pack of 4 and start gluing things together. Find a random pattern online, whether it's a cosplay you really want to do or you just want to learn. That way it's low stakes. You're not like, oh, I'm making this and it needs to be perfect because of what the dimension with it. Not that that's, a great mentality.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm harkening back to your advice. I think it's great to start experimenting just randomly with random patterns, like I'll make a bracer, I'll make whatever. That way you can learn it. I think foam is more forgiving than you think it would be, although there is a line where she stops playing nice. Yeah, just go out there, experiment, have fun, create. I love EVA foam, and I hope you guys do too if you choose to use it. Nice, as I switch the PowerPoint slides super seamlessly.
Seamless transition.
So seamless. It's so seamless, Luke. Can't you see how seamless it goes?
Might ask for that mic right there. That seems to have a little
This one?
slightly longer cable.
How's the gas
wonderful.
doing? There we go.
Yeah, don't have the best mobility in this, so I'm gonna try the best I can. Anyway, well,
Just imagine mechanical noises when he moves.
yeah, just little servos going off. Oh, there we go. So this is my amazing guide to 3D printing and armor, as that will be my example. So I didn't notice either of you guys doing an intro, so I'm gonna feel a little bad doing mine, but I'll go ahead and knock it out of the way real quick. Who am I? My name is Ronan. I'm a mechanical engineering student at UNC. I have 3 years experience in cosplay and 3D printing, and I still only have one 3D printer. Can you believe that? Making all this off of one printer took forever.
Let me control this for you.
Yeah, it's fine. So what is 3D printing? So we've all kind of seen it around, I'm sure. But 3D printing is the act of taking files from a computer. I better not broke that. It's been way too long on that. Anyway, 3D printing is taking files from a computer or slicer and then putting them into a machine to make anything you want, pretty much. So in my case, I make helmets, I make flamethrowers, all the sorts. It has a lot of industrial uses. You use it in medicine, you use it in aerospace, you use it pretty much anywhere where you need something quick and dirty. Now, how does it work? What do you need for it? Well, you need a printer, you need filament, which is the plastic that the printer uses to print, and you need a slicing software. That's the software that takes in the 3D model from whatever you want and then slices it up into thin little layers that the 3D printer can read and then print out. Now, what uses does 3D printing have inside cosplay? Pretty much anything that's up. You can make armor, you can make props, you can make rigging materials, so rigging being what you use to connect all the armor parts to your body. Detailing work, it's really great for small details, and if you need like a lot of them, like say you need to make some sequins. We're gonna 3D print sequins for this example. So you need to make sequins. You could make them out of cardboard or foam and hand carve every single one of them individually. Or you could run into a 3D printer, have it done in about 5 minutes, and then just slap them on whatever you want. Now, we'll go into more detail in 3D printing as we go on, but I'll go ahead and get started on the build overview that I have chosen, which is my Hazardous Environments HEV suit from Half-Life. So the version that I'm wearing is the HEV Mark IV from the original Half-Life. The original model from the video game, being from 1999, is very, very low quality. So I've also elected to use references from the remake of the game, Black Mesa. So the initial design was mostly cobbled together from stuff I bought online. So there is a very large market for 3D printed files, 3D printed armors. So I think your stormtroopers, your helldivers, clone troopers, all that. There's a lot of online resources for that, and there was for my HEV suit too as well. So the base of everything was mostly bought from 2 vendors. I don't remember the names off the top of the head. And then they were modified by me, mostly due to sizes, as I am a very large individual. So the initial printing process was quite rough, as I was printing with a brand new material in the form of PETG. Normally, what most 3D printers run off of is a material called PLA. That's your easiest material to work with. Simple, quick, and dirty. That's what this helmet is actually made out of. And it looks pretty nice. But working with PETG, I thought it would have several material advantages, mostly being temperature resistant and a slight bit of flexibility. Obviously, right here in the South, sun sucks. If you want to go out and paint stuff, it's going to not be fun, especially 3D plastic. 3D plastic starts to deform at about 150 degrees centigrade, starts to melt at about 200. Obviously, it's not that hot out, but with the sun beating down on it in an open area, it definitely will start to melt. PETG does not have that issue. It starts to deform around 250 degrees centigrade.
It was just saying in your car. It will.
Yeah.
It's a fair
Oh
point.
yes,
You have to store
don't put your 3D prints in the car. They will melt.
Don't store them, yeah.
Oh,
Nice. So I did elected to go with ETG for most of the armor. That's pretty much all I'm wearing here. And it went good. I was able to, paint it out the sun. However, I had to change a lot of the settings. I did not know kind of how to do that. So as you can see, a lot of failed attempts. But eventually, after about a month, I did get it to work smoothly. Assembly is mostly, some of this stuff obviously you can't fit on your 3D printer. So what I had to do was slice it up into different segments in the computer, in the online slicer, and then I would have to glue it together. So especially those legs that are sitting out in front of the table, I had to cut those up into a few pieces in the computer and then glue them together pretty haphazardly. Now, rigging 1.0, like I said before, rigging is the way that you put the armor onto your body. If you were to just kind of slide it on, it would look cool for about 5 seconds and then start falling off. So rigging was probably the most difficult part of this entire project. Yeah, I had about a month's delay with the printing, but the rigging was definitely the worst part by far. It was objectively bad, mostly because I had elected to use mostly elastics and not straight webbing or just nylon for most of it. So it was nice. It was nice and flexible, like you can't see here on my arm, but it did not handle tension well. Like I had the elastics holding up this bicep. The bicep is connected directly to this undersuit that I'm wearing. So having an elastic on that, everything just started to droop and fall down, and it was not very fun for me.
your biceps are too big.
Yeah, I'm too buff. Oh well. Painting. So what's the one? So before we get into painting, there's one thing that I should have done for this entire suit that I did not. Anyone guess what that is? What did you do before you?
The answer.
We can't answer, we know.
We have the answer. Does anyone else know the answer?
Let's start with
Sanding.
Sanding?
Yeah.
Yes, sanding. I did not do that. I'm a lazy bum. So none of this was sanded. However, there is a slight recent development in the form of this helmet, which I did sand, and it looks.
That's why it looks so good.
It
There you
looks
go.
significantly better than anything else that I currently have on my body. It's being demonstrated by a wonderful doctor.
I can't breathe.
You'll be fine. Just don't bring in the chemicals out of there. But like I said, the sanding process for this was 80, I believe, primer, and then 80 grit sandpaper just to get the rough edges off. Then we started going on with the Bondo Spot Honey at about 220 grit sandpaper, trying to just get all the lines out. 3D printers, they go layer by layer, so you'll have a lot of lines. So you gotta sand those out if you want them to look nice and pretty.
You actually used before the spot buddy. I'm sorry, I was here to help. It was like
She was.
auto body filler. It's like it's still Bondo, but it's like you have to mix it. Spot buddy just kind of comes out of a tube, but there's a body filler or something that I think works a little better because the red Bondo out of the tube is just kind of brittle. So I don't know.
Specifically, what I use is Rust-Oleum 2-in-1 filler primer.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the
I love
one.
that stuff.
You get a brand new car. How about that? So yeah, it was mostly sandpaper. Yes.
In regards to the spot putty, it's a very thick substance. So there's a little trick you can do in order to make it a little bit easier to paint on, which is put a little bit of acetone into a cup, mix it up with the spot putty, and it
Delicious.
thins it out. It doesn't mess with the compound, it just makes it a lot easier to brush on.
I will also add that spot putty is incredibly toxic. I was wearing a respirator when we were doing the sanding for this, but I suppose too much of it got in my hair or on my clothes, my good clothes, mind you, so I'm kind of upset about that. But I was incredibly sick after. Like, it was not great. I had to call poison control. So please be careful with sanding and spot putty. A lot of the stuff you do not want to inhale. But moving back onto the painting, it's mostly just.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
I went to school for biology, so we did a lot of things where like you wouldn't want to get chemicals in your hair and things. So they do have like the cheap paint suits that you can get at a paint store.
Like Walter White.
Yeah, like with the hoods, then you have a respirator and goggles. If you do that, there's a lot less likelihood that it gets on your skin. Especially like I'm a nail biter, my fingers are constant. I have to be really careful with Tom, so I'm sick. So just something like that will make sure that doesn't get in your hair and stuff. So.
Wear a paint suit and don't touch your nails.
Paint suit, take a shower right after, whatever you gotta do, just make sure none of those particulates are on you or on your clothes or anything like that. Nasty stuff. But after the sanding was all said and done, at least for this, obviously this is not sanding, you can tell it looks like shit. We use a lot of spray paint and acrylic. Acrylic mostly for the finer details, stuff I want to use with a paintbrush, small details like that. Especially this little lambda symbol on my chest, that was all acrylic, you can tell it looks like crap. But spray paint was for everything else. Obviously, you know, there's a bicoloration with the suit orange and black. So I just used masking tape to cover everything up I didn't want to paint it, and then just went back over it later. A lot of, that sucks, just trying to get all the tape in one place. I have these little fingernails to make sure I'm not getting the wrong places in with the tape. So, what did we learn? A lot. My first version of Gordon was a complete disaster. So what did I learn? PETG, terrible choice. It was just an awful choice. Yeah, it offered great temperature resistance, a little bit of flexibility, mind you, but it was just incredibly brittle. Like if I were to crush this chest plate with my arms right now, it would crack into.
I love how your picture talking about temperature resistance is when you're in the snow.
Oh no, that's the next slide.
I'm sorry. I saw this one. That's my fault.
Spoilers.
I find
Spoilers. Don't look. The rigging was also fundamentally flawed. The legs especially. So the legs had elastics because I use elastics for everything. The elastics had, bless you, the elastics went over the shoulders because I saw that with some power armor cosplayers, and I thought, you know what, that would probably work for my rinky-dinky legs. It did not. The legs sagged like crazy, and every time I tried to adjust it, it just felt like they sagged more and more until the elastics eventually gave way. Adhesives, the adhesives were weak. I did not sew stuff. Oh my goodness. I did not sew stuff like I ought to have. I used a lot of E6000 and hot glue. Hot glue under load bearing, ooh, bad. You could probably speak for that. Bad. Gluing everything together was bad. So instead of having a nice costume that we can go out and wear for maybe a day or two, we have a refurbishable costume that needs extensive repairs and reworks every time we come back in to Con.
You were immobilized many times.
Pretty much. He can attest to it. So what do we change? How do we get a better suit? First thing, we got to tear everything apart. Start from the armor up. So I started that process in about March, and I started by using acetone to dissolve all the glues, holding everything together. I re-glued everything with better adhesives, so think more E6000, less hot glue. It was hard to tell them apart at times because I didn't know what I used for E6000 and what I used for hot glue. So I was actually able to find that out by just tugging on it a little bit, and if it gave way, it was probably the hot glue. So I also had to redo the rigging. I learned a little bit of sewing to do so, mostly sewing the Velcro directly to the elastics instead of using adhesives. Thank you, Skyman, for helping me with sewing.
I'm so sorry your first time sewing had to be with Velcro.
Oh,
Yeah.
Trial by fire, that's what we call it. I also stuffed a few needles on the way, but oh well. So yeah, less adhesives, better rigging. These arms also, I ditched the elastics. I started using proper webbing, and they've been holding up so far. This is my first time out wearing them, and they feel pretty good.
Check back with us in 8 hours.
Yeah, there you go.
If I'm completely naked, you know why.
I hope you have something to wear besides the suit. Anyways,
So, changing the material. So PETG, obviously not a great idea. I did replace certain parts that were beyond repair with a PLA, and despite me not being able to kind of go outside in summer heat and paint them now, they feel a lot better. They're a lot less brittle, and I feel more comfortable wearing them out. Parts of those legs were actually refurbished with PLA. This helmet was made out of PLA, and it feels a lot good. The rigidity of it does have its benefits, believe it or not, even though it makes me slightly less mobile. So slowly going to be phasing out the PETG and start printing with PLA, just going as stuff breaks. Make a helmet and sand it this time. I did actually get it done in time, and I'm incredibly proud of it. I know I keep going back to the helmet, but it is my baby. And a lot more I don't have time to cover. I got a lot more plans for the hazard suit, mostly with foam furnituring actually. So kind of bits and pieces of the arms, maybe some more fabric work, which I already have started in between the joints and kind of just making it look more like a spacesuit, like it was referenced off of, rather than say like a Helldiver or Spartan armor.
Cool.
I think we're running low on battery here. Uh-oh. Okay, and so
Let's squeeze it in quick.
so any tips that I have for printers or armorsmiths? Do your homework. Whatever you need for your project, whatever skills you need to learn, do your homework on it. There are plenty of great online guides. There are plenty of great people in cosplay communities, both in person and online, that can help you out with anything that you need. If you get stuck, ask others for help. Like I said, you can find a guy for pretty much anyone, or a gal. You can find a person for anyone, any specific little niche that you need for costuming, like sewing, foam works, 3D printing, or cardboard. There's a lot of people who are really, really good at a few specific things that can help you out making your costumes. Trying to plug it in?
Yeah.
Oh, we just quick.
Oh, okay. Online resources, like I said, can definitely help you out. There's a few great channels I'd recommend. 3D Printing Shop, Maker's World, I think, also has a good one. So definitely go look at those, especially if you're just getting started, so you're not wasting 20, 40 bucks worth of filament trying to print your little 3D bench sheet. Personally for me, take breaks if you feel like you're getting stuck. I've had this HEV suit for about a year, and I've gotten so much frustration just trying to put things together and just trying to figure things out on my own. Because I didn't do this. I didn't do any of these tips that I'm trying to give to you right now. So this is from what I learned. But take breaks. If you feel like you're getting frustrated, maybe leave it for a day or two, as long as you're not con crunching, and just trying to.
Who would ever con crunch?
Oh, could be me. Could be me. I know I can con crunch this PowerPoint. Yeah, take breaks. Like you don't have to do everything in one day. You don't have to do everything in 1 week. If you come back to it with a fresh mind, you might be able to figure something out that you didn't before. That can also ties into never give up. Pretty self-explanatory. If you find yourself getting stuck on one thing, like I said, just take a few breaks and come back to it whenever. One additional thing I'll say is don't poison yourself like I did. Use PPE Interlude 2.0. But that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, we have about 7 minutes, so if we have any questions, we could answer some. If not, I certainly have some questions for you, group, but. Uh-oh.
Do you have any advice for how to make round things with EVA foam?
Crane.
Round in like what direction, in what way?
Like, can I like show you a
Spherical?
Spherical. Yeah, spherical is different, but that's very like.
I made this shoulder piece.
Oh,
and it was like really hard to make it strong.
Can I look?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Hey, let's get our
Let's get the experts' opinions.
It's made out of
Expert audience.
Oh, you might need it. What on there?
it was like
While we resolve this, any other questions?
Okay. You might.
Would you say there's any advantages or disadvantages to using Quicksilver for foam shapers?
Advantages or
For me
disadvantages?
personally, Quicksilver has just never like looked as good for me. It tends to like flake a lot more. For me, foam clay just treated me better, but like that in my experience, I don't have a lot more to say other than that. Is I do prefer foam clay, and using it has been better for me.
Question, with a heat gun, how much lay can you get? What I want to do specifically is Martian helmet.
Okay.
Oh, that would
Something
be good.
I don't
lightweight,
really like.
but you know, the top of it is round almost like a bowl.
Mhm.
Can you actually overlay the EVA and use the heat gun to shape it?
So what I would recommend is with EVA foam, it's a combination of not just shaping a flat sheet, but cutting out pieces. So typically when you're making like a round object, you'll make like, they're almost like this shape, right? They're like a petal. So you combine cutting out shapes and gluing them together with the heat gun to get those kinds of shapes, but it's definitely possible to make those more round, spherical sort of shapes.
So would you suggest perhaps, like, if it's a circle, like you were saying, with the Martian helmets, and perhaps piece by piece, so that it doesn't have to bend so much overall, or am I thinking of this like cardboard?
Kind of. There's lots of templating things available online to make spheres and that kind of thing. I would look into other base helmets that exist to kind of give you an idea of what those shapes will look like when you're making the pattern. but I would say it's definitely possible.
I think one of the things that you're looking for is definitely in like the fabric world. If you're doing certain things, you will make that like petal shape where it's thickest in the middle. If you look at like the old school lay flat globe pictures, you can see those kind of shapes. And so maybe reference like an old school globe flat view and maybe some fabric designs and then also the base helmet designs. And you might be able to make something up.
And I highly recommend templating with paper. Paper's still a little bit more flexible than EVA foam, but it'll give you a general idea that if you tape the paper together and it looks like the shape, you can probably make it out of EVA foam.
Okay.
And it's cheaper to try paper, obviously, first. Anyone else?
Well, I do have a question for each of us. What is your favorite cosplays that you have seen? Is there something about that you've seen? Yes, someone that you've seen. I can go first. For example, my favorite one is there was a Grover a couple of years back, and there's lots of technical expertise in the trash can, I guess, but it was something about the way that he expressed it creatively and the uniqueness of the idea that he would just sit in a corner and heckle people. And people loved it. They ate it up, and that was a very successful cosplay of mine. I really think it was quite successful.
Well, going back to like armor, suits of armor, I think the guys that do the full-size power armor from Fallout are pretty impressive. Like they have full rigs that they put the armor into, just like in the game. They stand on stilts all day. I can't imagine that's fun. And I guess this also extends to like Warhammer 40k Space Marines, like the big bulky armor. I think that's pretty neat. Maybe do one of those someday. I think that'd be pretty cool. What about you, Kay?
I don't know. I don't think about it.
You say yourself if you need to.
I'm like individually impressed by things, but there's not like. I don't think I have like one like formative one that was like this is it. I think it's just the general concept of like creativity, and I think also my favorite part is like making things my own and trying to figure out for myself. So although I'm impressed by other people, I wouldn't say there's like a specific person that I'm like whoa, even though I'm individually like whoa.
Any questions?
Any other questions that isn't just us yapping at each other?
It's not specifically about crafting, but I've always wondered, like, how do people travel with your cosplays? Because I assume y'all are from out of state.
So I'm quite local, thank God. You are not, but I mean, yeah.
Let's talk about your MARTA experience.
Oh, the MARTA experience. It is one thing to bring the medigun through the MARTA, but it's like all things. If you stare at someone for long enough, they'll stop staring at you. You have to establish dominance.
So can I answer this? Yeah. So my Marine fits just under an oversized. It's in one of those, I forget what they're called, but they're like, I don't know, the crates that they latch. So a lot of people, especially with Halo armor, if it's a full Spartan, they usually have to do 2 tubs or it clocks in as oversized. But usually people will put their stuff in tubs no matter how much, if it's oversized, you're gonna pay a lot more, especially for airline. And if you have a 3D print, and usually people take the helmet with them on the plane. So just like as a carry-on, they'll usually let you do that if you don't have like really strange wiring or anything hanging out. But if you have 3D print, I'd definitely say pat it. I mean, for this foam armor, I can just like shove it in the crate and go. It's like I flew the Spirit airline once, and people were like, no, don't do it. And I just like, it was fine. But for 3D prints, I'm not an expert, but I know you think you have to be more careful.
There's always a risk of your luggage being lost, but is there anything that you absolutely cannot part with? Like if I had to find somewhere, I'm not taking this. I'm going to find something more appropriate, perhaps a bone saw that really wouldn't be happy with the TSA, but I would find a way to hide it, or I just make it on site, because I had a very interesting time. I got to go to Washington to do a certain film, and I came back as a blue soldier. So I had a blue soldier costume with me, and so I stuffed the blue soldier inside of one of my cases, and I used the helmet as like a little bag, and I put it inside a liner, and I don't think they looked any other way, but it's just another level of creativity that you have to go through.
I will say modularity is something you want to be actively thinking about. How can I take this prop and break it apart into smaller pieces? That's really it helps you travel, whether even in a car, just making room, especially if you're carrying other people, or on a plane, is how can I make these points have detachable areas, whether it's with magnets or with clips or that kind of thing. Obviously, this is a terrible example because it's a really long pole, but also we are approaching time as a heads up, guys. But yeah, just think about where you can make a natural break that won't feel like it's disruptive with a cosplay. There's lots of places to hide scenes and things like that.
We are minutes over now.
I have one thing.
Yes?
This is not a question. This is a gift.
Is this a demand? Oh.
You have your touch now.
Yeah, can we get a photo of it real quick?
He is yours.
What?
That's
He
yours.
is yours.
A surprise.
I'm a father!
That concludes the panel.
Thank you so much for coming to our panel.
Was there 100%?